The headlights slashed through the suffocating darkness, carving a fragile path along the empty road. Ethan's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, his jaw clenched as he pressed harder on the gas. The hum of the engine seemed to echo in the silence, a mechanical heartbeat in a world that felt increasingly detached from reality. In the back seat, Mia hunched over her camera, her fingers trembling as she scrolled through the photos. She had always sought beauty in eerie places. Decay fascinated her, the way abandoned structures whispered forgotten stories. But this place wasn't abandoned. It wasn't even empty. Her photos captured something she couldn't explain, couldn't even articulate. The symbols etched into the bark of the trees glowed faintly on her camera screen, pulsating like living organisms. "Ethan," she said, her voice breaking the heavy silence. She didn't look up from the glowing display. "Something's wrong with these pictures." "Not now, Mia," Ethan muttered, his tone tight with tension. "Just look at this." Her voice carried an edge of desperation as she leaned forward, thrusting the camera toward Liam in the passenger seat. He sighed, running a hand through his already messy hair, and reluctantly turned to look. At first, it was just the symbols. Circles, triangles, jagged lines that seemed too precise to be random. Then Liam noticed something else. Within the patterns, faint shapes began to emerge, twisting and shifting as though alive. One symbol looked disturbingly like a face, its mouth open in a silent scream. "Jesus," Liam muttered, his breath catching. He shoved the camera back toward Mia. "It's just a trick of the light or something." "No," Mia insisted, her voice trembling. "It's not just the photos, it's this place. Something's wrong." Ethan's knuckles turned white as he gripped the wheel harder. "You think I don't know that?" The car jolted as Ethan slammed on the brakes, sending everyone lurching forward. The sudden stop was jarring, but not as much as the sight in front of them. A woman stood in the middle of the road, illuminated by the harsh glare of the headlights. Her dress, once white, was stained with dirt and torn at the edges. Her hair fell in unkempt strands around her face, which was hidden in shadow. "Ethan," Liam hissed, his voice taut with panic. "What the hell are you doing? Drive around her." Ethan didn't move. His breath hitched as the woman slowly lifted her head, revealing a face that was pale, almost translucent. Her eyes were voids, black and infinite, and her mouth twisted into an unnatural smile. "Do you see her?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Mia and Liam said simultaneously, their voices trembling. Ethan eased the car forward, steering it around the woman as she remained motionless. But as they passed her, her head snapped to the side, tracking their movement. Mia gasped, and Ethan's foot hit the gas pedal, the car accelerating down the dark highway. No one spoke for several minutes, the silence filled only by the whispers that had begun to grow louder. They weren't words exactly, more like faint murmurs overlapping endlessly, but they crawled into their minds, probing for cracks. Liam was the first to break. "I can't take this," he muttered, rubbing his temples as if trying to force the whispers out. "It's in my head." Mia leaned forward, her voice urgent. "It's not just in your head, look outside." Ethan didn't want to, but his eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. His stomach dropped. The woman was there, running after them. Her limbs moved unnaturally, jerking as though they were being pulled by invisible strings. Her black eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, fixed on the car. "Don't look back," Ethan barked, gripping the wheel like it was the only thing tethering him to sanity. But Mia had already turned, and her scream pierced the air. "She's not alone," she choked out. "There are more of them." running through a similar forest, the same symbols carved into the trees. Liam was unraveling faster. He clutched his head, rocking back and forth in his seat. "They're in my head," he muttered repeatedly. "They're telling me things. Horrible things." "What things?" Mia demanded, her voice sharp with fear. Liam's eyes were wide and glassy as he turned to her. "That we're not going to make it. That Ethan knows why we're here." "What?" Mia's gaze snapped to Ethan, but he kept his eyes on the road. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," Ethan snapped, but even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. What if he did know? Mia was fighting her own battle. The symbols in her photos seemed to move now, shifting and pulsating whenever she looked at them. Her camera had always been her sanctuary, her way of making sense of the world. Now, it was betraying her, showing her things she couldn't explain. She felt like the forest was inside her head, its roots burrowing deep into her mind. The road abruptly ended. One moment they were speeding along the highway, and the next, the car was skidding to a halt in a ditch. The headlights dimmed, casting weak beams into the encroaching forest. Ethan stumbled out of the car, his heart pounding. The road was gone, swallowed by the trees. The forest loomed around them, silent and oppressive. "We're trapped," Liam whispered, his voice barely audible. "This place, it doesn't let you leave." From the shadows, the woman emerged again. She wasn't alone. Figures stepped out behind her, their faces twisted into grotesque masks of joy. The whispers crescendoed, filling the air with a cacophony of voices. "You brought them here," the woman said, her voice soft but dripping with malice. Her empty eyes locked onto Ethan. Just like before. "What is she talking about?" Mia demanded, her voice trembling. Ethan didn't answer. Flashes of memory assaulted him. Running through these woods as a child, the same whispers chasing him and the same hollow-eyed figures closing in. He had been here before, and somehow he had escaped, but he had never really left. Realizing that he is the key to their survival, Ethan confronts the woman. The figures stop, their hollow eyes fixed on him as he steps forward. The whispers grow deafening, but Ethan pushes through them, his memories piecing together. He offers himself to the forest, knowing it will spare Mia and Liam. As the figures close in on him, the forest begins to recede, leaving Mia and Liam alone on the side of an empty highway. They try to call for Ethan, but he's gone, his name etched into the nearest tree.